And thank you for having us speak here and showing us the collection and everything. It's very interesting to be able to talk with the different cities as well as the people of Milan about their experiences. So just a little background about New York City. We obviously have very, very high density of population in Manhattan. It can be up to more than 100,000 people per square mile. I think this is like 65,000 people per square kilometer. So very, very densely populated, and it's also very a vertical city. So we have lots of buildings in high rises. In fact, most people live in apartment buildings in the city, which obviously has implications for how they manage their waste. So a look at our legal requirements. So we have a 2006 solid waste management plan, which kind of sets the tone for how we collect in the city. And then we have Local Law 40 of 2010, which basically sets our next targets for recycling, for separate collection. So by 2020, we need to divert 25% from curbside and containerized, so dumpsters, and a 33% diversion rate or separate collection rate from the waste that the city manages. One important detail, the city, so Department of Sanitation, collects waste from residents and nonprofits and city agencies. We do not collect from businesses. The reason is because we are funded by the taxes that the people pay every year, and the businesses do not pay these taxes. So we provide the service to the citizens of the city. We also, in addition to collecting garbage and recycling, we also clean the streets, and we also manage the snow, which is quite a feat. Another goal that sets the tone for our recycling is Plan YC. So this is a plan that Mayor Bloomberg started. It's sort of a city-wide vision of how we become a more sustainable city. So their mandate is to divert 75% of our solid waste from landfills, and that includes commercial waste as well. The main one here is the double our diversion from residents and institutions, so from the citizens, by 2017. That means that we have to go from 17% recycling that we were at the time that the plan was written to 35%. So how do we get to 35%? They also set a goal to divert 50% food waste from restaurants. Again, because sanitation does not collect from restaurants, the mayor's office has other programs to incentivize the restaurants and commercial businesses to recycle. We actually just passed legislation last year that is going to require large generators of food waste. So for example, universities, hospitals, sports stadiums, et cetera, they will now be required to compost their food waste. So looking at our current economics for the waste that we collect from the residences. We collect paper, and we also collect metal, glass, plastic, and cartons. We collect them in one truck, but the people have to separate them. So it's actually 3 different streams for the majority of the city. We're not talking about organics yet. So everyone in the city is required to separate their paper and cardboard. They are also required to separate their metal, glass, plastic, and cartons, and they can put all of that together. And then everything that's left over goes in the trash. And you can see here the different prices that we pay. Obviously, we want to get as much paper, clean paper as we can because we get revenue from that. And the metal, glass, plastic, and cartons is a lot less expensive to dispose of than the garbage. So this is what recycling looks like now, not in the areas that we're doing organics. So the recycling rate is about 15%. It varies across the city. Now, you'll see the different breakdown between how much is garbage and how much is recycling, paper and metal, glass, plastic. So if we recycled 100% of our paper, metal, glass, plastic, and cartons, we would only reach 35%. But remember, we are required to reach 35%. So even if we recycle all of the stuff we currently recycle for the whole city, we will not reach that goal. So here's a breakdown of what is currently in New York City's waste. The designated recyclables, so the traditional recycling that everyone in the city is required to separate, it's about 33%, like we just said. Organics suitable for composting, so it doesn't include other organics like lumber from construction, but the food scraps, paper, and yard waste. It's about 31% of the total waste stream. And then we have some other materials. We have programs to recycle the household hazardous waste. We have yearly events to recycle these items, and we also have special drop-off sites and other programs that we run to help the citizens recycle these hazardous materials. And then other materials, plastic bags, which can be recycled at the grocery store if they're clean. And then e-waste and textiles. We also have some brand new innovative programs that are allowing residents to collect textiles and electronic waste inside their apartment buildings. It's a free service to them. We partner with local nonprofits who collect the items, and it's a completely free service to apartment buildings so that they can recycle these items very, very easily for their residents. So looking at what is still in the garbage, after people separate as much paper and plastic and metal that they can, this is what is still in the garbage. So if we were to reach our diversion goals, we need 500,000 more tons. You can see there's barely that much left in the traditional recycling. So that is to say, even if we capture 100% of that material, we still wouldn't meet our goal. And we know that it's probably unrealistic to expect to capture 100% of the paper and the plastic and metal that's in the waste stream. We know some of it does go to other places. So that leaves us with one option. We have to get the food scraps and the organics out of the waste stream. That's really our only option left to reach our diversion goals. So the potential benefits for doing this, of course, is increase our waste diversion to meet the goals. It's less expensive. We create compost and or renewable energy. We send some of it, or we will be sending some of the material to our anaerobic digesters. And a very important piece that is really key for a lot of New York City residents is if we give them the bins. If they put it out in the bins, so they lock the food waste, they store the food waste in a secure bin, we're actually hoping to reduce the rodent populations in New York City, because we are unlike most cities in our country where we put our trash in a black bag on the curb, we leave it overnight, so it's like a rat buffet, right? There's no problem for the rats to chew through these black bags, and in fact, that is why we have so many rats in New York City. So it's, these other benefits are great benefits, but they're very indirect for a lot of the citizens because, again, they don't pay as you throw. They don't pay as they throw. It's all in their tax bills, which is usually paid by the apartment buildings, et cetera. So the main incentive that we can give to residents that is a very visual, important thing for them is we hope that it'll reduce the rodent populations. Our Department of Health actually approached us about doing a study, we call it the rat study, where we want to convert whole blocks of buildings over to containerizing their food waste, so to put all the food in these bins, and then study the effect on the rats. And we're hopeful that we can prove that it reduces the rat populations. So some other programs that we've had before we started the residential curbside collection, okay? We do green market drop-offs. It's like a farmer's market. We started in Union Square, which is in downtown Manhattan, and we are now in all 5 boroughs. So on the weekends or during the week, people come to buy their fresh vegetables from the farmers. They can also bring their food scraps. And then we have community drop-off centers, like in community gardens. They can also bring their food scraps there. And our office helps manage these programs and fund these programs. We also have a project called New York City Compost Project, which helps those green markets and the local organics recovery facilities, the community gardens. It helps them in outreach, education, and setting up those sites. Another way that we divert organics throughout the city is Christmas tree collection and mulching. So after Christmas, the citizens put their trees on the curb, and we collect them and turn them into mulch. And then we had a program for several years where we collected leaf and yard waste seasonally, so in the spring and in the fall. And it wasn't in the entire city, but in a good number of districts in the city. And we only came once a week. It was on Sundays, so it was very expensive for us to run this program, which is why it was the first program to be cut when the budget falls. And so we are actually able to do this program right now, our organics program, instead of the seasonal leaf and yard waste collection. It's currently suspended while we run the organics pilot. We did some previous studies in the past, so about the same time that Northern Italy was doing their first pilot, we started a pilot. We did it in a few neighborhoods in Brooklyn. One of the neighborhoods was a very green neighborhood. It was successful, but we didn't have the kind of infrastructure that we have in place now. We didn't have the case studies from the other cities that had already implemented these programs successfully for years. So at the end of the pilot, we did not continue it. I think we're in a different situation now, which is very hopeful. We also did some pilots on backyard composting or on-site composting with like mini anaerobic digesters and things like that. We also did a pilot in 2004 with mixed waste composting. So we took all their trash, tried to separate it. Again, it's not as efficient as separate collection though. So in 2013, our city council passed a law that mandates us to run a pilot program to test the curbside collection of separated organic waste. So meaning that the citizens have to separate it and we pick it up separately from the rest of their waste and recycling. We are in schools, we are in the residential neighborhoods, high-rise apartment buildings, and agencies, institutions, and nonprofits. Those are the 4 different, say, customer types that we have. And again, we suspended the seasonal leaf and yard waste collection during this pilot. As I mentioned, we're working with the New York City Department of Health with the rat study. We're working with the Department of Education to get this program into all public schools in New York City, which is a huge number of schools. Right now, we are in about 350 schools across the city, and we're continuing to add more. And then we also work with the Department of Environmental Protection, who manages the anaerobic digesters. It's actually our wastewater treatment facility, but as a pilot program with Department of Environmental Protection, we are going to do like a little mini pilot to test the anaerobic digestion of the material we are collecting curbside. So how do we evaluate the program? How do we measure our success? 4 parameters, so the amount of material that we collect. Are we actually diverting that tonnage and that 33% from the waste stream? The participation rate, so how many people are doing it. The bins have RFID tags in them, and our trucks, most of them, but all of them eventually will have the RFID reader, so the software that knows when the bin is set out. So basically for participation rate, we get a count of how many times or how many of those bins actually went to the curb on collection day. Proper participation, so maybe they're participating, but did they do it correctly? Are they putting plastic in there? Are they putting metal in there? Are they putting trash in the bin? And then cost effectiveness, so how much it actually ends up costing to run the pilot, et cetera. So what do we collect? We collect all food scraps, including meat and bones, and this is an important distinction for a lot of people in New York City because a lot of people are used to backyard composting, or they're familiar with it, or when you take your food waste to the green markets or the community gardens, most of the time it's only vegetable scraps and green material. You can't put the meat and the bones because, again, they're smaller scale systems, and they won't reach those temperatures, and also in the community gardens, they don't want meat and things like that to attract rodents. However, so I reassure the people in our curbside pilot, we are taking our material to industrial scale composting facilities. The microbes, eat through all of it. I say they're equal opportunity microbes. They'll eat anything, and they'll break all of it down at the same rate as the vegetable scraps. So same with the food, soil, paper, okay, as you know, and the plants and yard waste. We collect all of it together. We tell people, fit as much yard waste as you can in the bin, but we know you probably can't fit a lot. Say if all your leaves fall, you can't fit all of it in the bin. So we give them other options. They can put it in another bin with the lid off. They can put it in a paper bag or a clear plastic bag. So it's a big question about plastic bags, and it's been a little bit confusing for our citizens, so I'll go over the options with you. So it's really about education. So we tell them our preferred options are if you're lining the bin, so if you're putting a bag in the bin, use paper or the BPI certified compostable bags. We say no shopping bags or other plastic. Now, we started the program by not allowing any type of regular plastic, including the bag to line the bin. However, at the beginning of this year, we decided to make a change to allow people to put one single large plastic bag in the brown bin. So not lots of little plastic bags, but only one bag that can go over the entire bin, and then you just throw the food waste loose in there. If you use a plastic bag in the kitchen, okay, but you still have to empty the food out of that bag because it can't go in the bin. But this great option, of course, is the compostable bags. This is the most familiar option to people in terms of their behavior because this is what we pretty much all do. In New York, we get the little shopping bags from the deli, we fill it with your food, and then you come and dump it outside. And then you don't have to go back to your apartment and clean anything or whatever. So I tell people, this is like the best option for you to just, be done with it and not have to worry about cleaning anything. However, we did allow the change with the plastic bags to get the tonnage. We still need the tonnage, and the processors were willing to take the food in one large plastic bag if it means that they'll get the material. And of course, we are monitoring the bags, the amount of contamination, comparing compostable bags to plastic bags, and getting that information from the processing facilities. So in schools, we started in 2011, actually, with 4 schools. We had a group of very excited mothers on the Upper West Side who really wanted to get their schools composting. So they started it, and then we sort of started working with them to get other schools in the Department of Education on board. So in 2012 to 2013, we added 90 schools and some private schools in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And then in 2013, we added 300 more schools. We also went to all schools on Staten Island. So every single public school in Staten Island is recycling food waste, and this is both in the cafeteria with the children, also in the kitchens with the staff. And then our projection for this next school year is to go beyond 400 of these schools in all 5 boroughs. So we try to match the school area with our pilot area, our home residential pilot areas. So the schools in Queens and the Bronx that we'll be doing will be in the same neighborhoods as the residential pilot. So the kids learn it at school and they come home and they do it with their parents. This is just kind of the different players that are involved in the schools. It's actually pretty complicated, the structures inside the Department of Education. For example, the principal is not allowed to tell the custodian what to do. So you can imagine that's very difficult for us then to incentivize the custodian to do his job properly. But we give them lots of education. We have lots of tools that we give. We created these posters that go above the bins. So, they're large for the students to read. First, they pour out all the liquids, then they recycle metal, glass, plastic, and like milk cartons. Then they put their regular trash, and then they can throw all of the organic waste. We do allow them to use a clear, regular plastic bag, again, because of the large volume, and also because of the procurement issues with Department of Education. They are working, I believe, to get compostable bags in their procurement process, but they have not been able to do that yet because of just bureaucratic issues. And then there's the custodial staff who actually takes the bins to the curb, and then our collection staff. So those are the different parties involved with the schools. Again, we created these posters. We do site visits with every school. We go there and we look at their cafeteria because their cafeteria is different from every other cafeteria in the city. And we tell them, okay, maybe put the bins here, or maybe you need a station here and a station on the other side of the cafeteria, but you don't want 6 different stations because then it will be too hard to manage. We also worked with a local group, created this really fun video where they're doing like a rap song about organics collaboration. And then we have tip sheets and stuff that we give to the custodians. So the residential pilot, okay, so our pilot areas, according to Local Law 77, the areas that we need to focus on are 1 to 9 unit residential buildings, so single family homes, which there aren't a lot of in New York City, but we started in those neighborhoods, up to 9 units. So if you're an apartment with 10 units or more, you have to just sign up online. The reason, again, is so we can do a site visit, because every building is different than every other building in New York City. We go there and advise them exactly what to do in their unique situation. So we actually started, our first neighborhood was about a year ago in Staten Island, 3,200 homes. And then in fall of 2013, we went to Bronx and Brooklyn, a small area in Brooklyn. So our total was about 30,000. Now we are just finishing delivering bins in these areas, and we are going to reach 100,000 households total. That is our mandate by law, to reach 100,000 households. And so we expanded this spring in Queens and 2 different areas in Brooklyn. What we're giving them is a bin. We give them the little kitchen bucket. We were able to provide a sample supply, 1 box of compostable bags for everyone in those first 30,000 homes. So this group and this group all got 1 box of compostable bags. These groups from spring are getting coupons. They get coupons instead of a box from 4 different manufacturers. We send out lots of education. We sent them a mailer several weeks before we came with the bin saying, hey, you're going to get something. Look out for it. You know, this is what it's about. And we also sent some door hangers. We created a brochure with easy to understand pictures, again, just to try to help everyone understand, especially with language barriers. And then we have a special kind of brochure for the apartment buildings, because in the apartment buildings, the residents themselves are not the ones who bring the bins to the curb. All they worry about is getting the food from their kitchen downstairs. So how does it work in high-rise apartment buildings? That's the big challenge, right? Because most of the city is these high-rise apartment buildings. So we start with the single-family neighborhoods, and then bringing on slowly the large buildings. We can get best practices. We can test different things in different buildings, and then be able to deploy those strategies to a large-scale, group of buildings. So again, with the RAT study with the Department of Health, we added a 5-building complex with almost 1,000 units last year. It's going very well. We also have a luxury building. They were their first high-rise building to come on the program. And then at this point, we have over 40 buildings in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and we have a long waiting list. So as far as our processing, most of it's composted. Some of it at Sanitation managed facilities. We only have 1 facility that we manage in the 5 boroughs, which is on Staten Island. According, I think, to the 2006 Solid Waste Management Plan, each borough has to handle their own waste. So, for example, Brooklyn can no longer dump their waste in Staten Island. and Manhattan cannot dump it in Staten Island. What this means effectively is that we send most of our garbage out of state. However, we have a composting facility in Staten Island. So all of the Staten Island material is going there, it's composted. We just released a bid for, I think, 100,000 ton capacity within the region, so not from one single supplier, but in total. So again, that's one of the changes that is different now during these pilots than in the 90s, because we didn't have that capacity back then. And then, of course, the anaerobic digestion. This is our wastewater treatment plant in Brooklyn. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with these types of pictures. We've got just leaves, so just yard waste, food with no bag, a bag, different options. These are obviously compostable bags. These were printed by BioBag with our logo on it, so that was nice. And people do different things. This person taped their brochure onto their bin to remind them what to do. So results so far, in 2013, we were able to collect 1,650 tons. We do periodic audits of the waste in the schools. We are at about 34% of their food waste being recycled. It's similar in the large apartment buildings. That 5-unit complex with 1,000 people, by doing this program, they changed the recycling rate for their entire district. They lowered it by 0.5%. So that's really, a big chunk. Diversion in the pilot neighborhoods is up about 5%, and the contamination rate is about the same, I think, as what we saw from Milan. So, of course, it's mostly plastic, but less than 5%. So I think yours was about 4%. So we're about the same. And then the participation rate. So we measure it on, again, the number of bins that are set out. And, but we also don't require someone to set out the bin every single week in order for them to be counted as participants. So depending on the way you count it, some people set out, once a week, twice a week. So our participation ranges from about 20 to 40 or 50% per month. So we measure it on a monthly basis. This is just a cute example of what one resident did with the bin. I'm not sure if they're saying something good or bad, but it's creative at least. So, thank you.